Hello, and welcome to the cavnessHR podcast. I'm your host, Jason Cavness. Our guest today is Victor L. Brown. Victor, are you ready to be great today?
I'm doing great. Thank you for having me on your show.
Victor is a seasoned leader with extensive experience within both large global and startup companies that deploy enterprise-class software and sensor-based applications. Victor has driven business success as a leader and as a hands-on practitioner of best practice approaches. Currently, Victor is the CEO of Xcellent, an early-stage digital health analytics company which has launched an innovative mobile software platform to improve the quality of life by improving healthcare with better consumer engagement and analysis of health using artificial intelligence. Victor, that's quite a big piece of something you're trying to do there, isn't it? I mean, that's a big scope right there.
It is. It's something I'm very passionate about, but it's directly related to, I guess, my background and what I had done before, and that connecting me to a more personal situation. It makes me very passionate about pushing for better solutions in healthcare.
So, Victor, what is the vision for your company?
So the vision for Excellent Life is to provide a solution for real-time human diagnostics. So if you think about that as being like a very sophisticated OnStar system, but for the human body, a system that is essentially protecting our bodies and our livelihood each and every step of the way, utilizing sophisticated algorithms to understand various factors that affect our health and wellness. So that's the vision for the company. And the idea is that through utilizing that, so many of the preventable illnesses that we're experiencing each and every day that rob many of us of quality of life will go away.
Victor, is the health industry ready for AI?
Well, slowly but surely, healthcare is putting their arms around artificial intelligence. But by and large, the way healthcare is utilizing AI is usually on the operational side. So they're finding efficiencies about the way they operate and all these other applications, because there are many applications. What healthcare is not really doing a lot of right now, and this will be growing, is utilizing AI on the diagnostic side and preventive side. So that's kind of a newer area that healthcare is really diving into.
So for that part, do you think people are ready for that? Do you think people are ready for AI to diagnose them? I think most people are like more like, I want to see a guy in front of me or a lady in front of me. I want to see a human. Do you think we're ready for AI to do that?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. I think slowly but surely, people will begin to adopt the assistance of computer-based or computer intelligence assessing us, because inherently there are things that AI can do that humans just can't do as fast, and you usually get to a better outcome when it's done in the right way. So I think gradually we'll be more accepting of that.
Is your target customer a certain size hospital, or how's that going to work for you?
Well, a target customer ideally would be a hospital system or a medical clinic that has multiple clinics, because ultimately, while we want to provide a solution that makes it better for the end user, our best way of getting to them will be through hospital systems and small clinics where they can utilize our application to better engage their patient base and also help and assist diagnosing them and preventing them from getting conditions that we can identify high risk at.
Victor, I have to imagine that the tech stack you built on this is pretty complicated. What's been the challenge of building the actual platform out?
Yeah, well, as crazy as it sounds, the biggest part of the platform is just really grabbing the data, because the analysis of the data, and this is the part that's a little more complex, the algorithms have really evolved over 20 years of research and development. That's kind of what I would call part of our secret sauce. But building a platform to collect the data, that's not really that difficult. It's really just a different approach that we're taking. It's just that we understand that there are many facets of our life that are interconnected that make a difference in our health and wellness. So we want to pull all of that information in to our repository and run these more sophisticated algorithms that have evolved. And from that, you can make unbelievable discoveries and assessments of their health in that moment, but also make predictions about what is to come. Um,
Victor, have there been any challenges as far as like health privacy matters or health privacy data?
Not really, because we can, in some regards, technology has really outpaced regulation. So you have high tech, you have HIPAA. It's easy to basically account for those. We run on an AWS backend. AWS through a BAA essentially allows you to relegate HIPAA compliance over to their side by, certain coding standards are required, but that's not difficult. It's really, the piece you alluded to earlier is that how receptive is the public and our healthcare service providers and all these stakeholders going to be to having an AI powered solution that can take them farther down the path of, diagnosis. And the acceptance of that will grow over time.
So how are you doing the education part for your company as far as getting people on board, whether it be health professionals or just the regular patients?
Right. So this is a big piece for us, and I think it's broader even than the question that you asked. I believe that educating kind of the public and the market about your solution and the value of your solution is paramount to growing to the point that we want to grow. And there's a part of that, educating clients and also the users. It's just a smaller subset of that. So our approach is that we look to create a library of videos that provide part of that education, the rationale as to why our approach is better, some higher level videos about how our approach works. And so over the course of time, we want to put all of this into the market and then also, in a more personal way, provide that training to our clients and also the end users who will be touching our solution on a daily basis.
Victor, is there a plan in the future to go to the actual medical schools and like get them when they're still in school and try to train them up on your process?
Well, that's an interesting thought. That's not something I've actually considered, but I think that's a brilliant idea. I mean, there's so many different applications and channels to get what we're doing into the hands that where it could offer value. Um, yeah, I think that's a good thought, but not something that we have part of our immediate plans to do.
So Victor, you have experience in large corporations and startups. Can you talk about some of the differences between working in the two?
Sure. So, and a large company, and I was really fortunate. I started my career with what I would call a blue chip company. Spent 11 years with a company called Snyder Electric. Still have a lot of great friends there. And you're basically getting trained to do everything. So they have these massive budgets. A lot of times they're putting you in classroom settings to teach you best practice about whatever it is you're doing, whatever your role involves. And I remember my first startup that I worked at, where I felt that I had an opportunity to have a greater impact. I'm building a team out, and part of what I wanted to do was provide this training program for the team that I was bringing in. And my boss, who was the chief strategy officer at the time, was like, "Training program? We don't have a budget for training program." And he coupled together some documents, just said, "Here, have them read this." So just to compare and contrast, training, for a large corporation versus what might be training for a startup was a big difference. And that was my first experience. You don't have the budget for anything.
So Vic, you kind of talked about this already, but how did working at a large company prepare you to be at a startup?
How did it compare? You said?
No, how did it help you?
Help? Oh, prepare? Oh,
Yeah.
um, it taught me a lot about taking a very long-term approach and a very prepared approach. Many times in startups, I think you can have an idea, you can move very quickly, kind of fly by night. You can be a bit spastic, and there are fewer stakeholders involved with the way decisions are made. But in a large company, uh, anytime you're moving forward probably with the approval of many stakeholders. So you have to come to the table very prepared and be able to defend your position. And so what I found is that when you take an approach of moving a little slower and bring that over to the startup world, but very prepared, when you're communicating with the smaller group of stakeholders, it's really helps the level of buy-in because they're understanding why you're moving in a certain direction, they've had a chance to chime in. And I think just the overall process of getting from point A to point B has really helped to get a lot of buy-in and support, and it creates uh, kind of a air and sense of excitement because everyone is vested and bought into it because they're a part of it.
Victor, you bring a good point. I don't think many people realize how spastic startup life is, do they?
Oh yes, it could be very spastic, and having a chance to have worked in different environments, there's some good and bad with that. You find brilliant people who start startups, they're visionaries. They have these bright ideas, and not all the times are they kind of the people to manage well. And when you have someone that doesn't have a process in place and doesn't go through a regimented process of getting things done, but yet they're a visionary and their visions change from day to day or from week to week, then what you have is a startup that's floundering because every week you have some different flavor that other people are having to react to. And yeah, that's the nature of a startup. And so I think process is important so that you can find yourself on a great trajectory and you can repeat success and you can avoid failures instead of repeating them over and over.
I agree. That's why it's, you don't find very many successful, solo founders, because they don't have all the tools to do it. Everyone is not an Elon Musk.
Right, right.
I mean, even Steve Jobs needed walls, right?
Yeah, you need someone just to bounce ideas of to give you a different perspective because regardless of what experience you have, I mean, you're operating from an individual perspective and there's going to be things that you're going to be missing out on. But if you're open-minded enough to, have someone beside you that you trust that has their own experience, it doesn't matter who they are, but if they will be honest in providing their insights and their perspective, there's something that you can glisten from that and utilize to your advantage.
Victor, so back on February 14, 2018, you wrote an article on LinkedIn, introspective in the start of an entrepreneurial journey. Can you talk about some of the things you learned since then about the startup process and like just your overall journey since you started the company and
Sure.
wrote that article?
I was told this early in life, but it didn't necessarily resonate as much with me then as it did starting my journey and especially where I am now. But I was told it's important who you know. My parents, I guess, were wise enough to tell me that years ago, and I heard it, but I didn't really feel it. And as a part of this startup journey, I think I really got into it in being very naive in that, our team has a lot of experience. We've, got a very experienced team. And the idea was that, well, when we're looking to raise capital, certainly people who want to de-risk their investment in operating in a large market, getting behind a team that's passionate, that has a lot of experience, then money will come trickling in and then flowing in, and we'll have all the resources we need. That was quite naive. What I found was that it's going to be very difficult to break into those circles, and it is very important to do so because people who are going to invest early really have to know you or have to be from the same circles or have you be invited into those circles. And that's really the process that we're going through now as we're looking to raise capital. And I would say that I was very naive in terms of the notion of raising capital initially versus where I am right now. And that introspective, that's something that I've learned as part of this process. You definitely need to reach out and know the right people.
So, Victor, are you fundraising in the local Tennessee area? Are you going to go to Silicon Valley, New York City? What's your plan for that?
Yes.
Everywhere.
Everywhere. So, because of capital constraints, I can travel at a minimum. So mostly it's here in Tennessee. So I reach out to stakeholders in Tennessee, but using the internet, you can reach out to anywhere in the world. So I cast a broad net. I'm having conversations from people that are outside of Tennessee, but I believe that it's really important to be face to face. So when those conversations with people outside of Tennessee get to a certain point, I try to take it upon myself to either get to them or have them come to me somehow. And but the idea is to reach out beyond Tennessee.
So, Victor, you have a pretty specific market. How are people find out about your company?
Sure. I would say they can go to our website, which is www.xcellentlife.com. That excellent is with an X. So that's Xcellent life.com. That's a great way to find out about us. Or they can follow me on Twitter. I'm starting to be more active on Twitter, Victor Brown 7. And yeah, I'm sending out information on a regular basis between the website and Twitter. That's a great way.
Victor, can you talk about how you've been recruiting your team? Because I have to think, you have to have a certain level of intelligence to do what you're doing. You just can't bring anyone to your team. How has that been working for you?
Well, our team consists of three right now. It's myself, and really pseudo co-founders, the CTO and the chief medical officer. And interestingly enough, um, I have a technical background. So I finished an undergrad in computer engineering technology and worked as an engineer for a while, but I had not coded in a while. So that was not going to be my strength. So initially I knew I was going to have to bring on a CTO who, that was more of their sweet spot, and someone specifically that understood machine learning and AI. So what I did is I put out an ad on Indeed, and in that ad, it was asking for, criteria that you might see for someone recruiting for a Fortune 500 company for a CTO. They had all this experience required, all this leadership required. And then at the end of the ad, it was like, oh yeah, by the way, there's no salary, there's no benefits, the hours suck. Like, and in my mind, like if anyone applies for that job, they have to really be serious about making a difference in the world, and I got to give them a serious look. And I had over 35 applicants. All of them had incredible credentials, a lot of them not necessarily needing money. But I interviewed 7 of them, and one gentleman really, really stood out, who is an expert in AI and machine learning. He's co-authored 3 textbooks that are currently utilized in higher education. So that was the way I recruited our CTO. We've become good friends since then, Samuel Bernteski. And then my chief medical officer was a good friend of mine I knew from undergrad. She's a board certified anesthesiologist. And I wanted to bring someone over from the medical industry because I knew that wasn't my experience. My experience was coming from the energy sector, where I had over 20 years of experience. And having her, come on board early was very beneficial as well, because she can provide, connections into the medical space and also insights from the medical industry from her 15, 20 years of experience that she has.
Victor, you bring up a great point. When you're a startup, the biggest challenge, first you got to bring on qualified people. I know, by the way, you're not going to pay anything. Like, how did you convince your CTO and chief medical officer come on unpaid? I mean, that's a big challenge. I mean, you can tell them, I'm going to give you equity. But my point of view, hey, I'm going to give you like X% equity in the company. To me, that's the same as telling someone, see the rainbow, the pot of gold is yours.
You're right.
It's probably not going to happen. So any advice for entrepreneurs on how to convince people to work for, quote unquote free?
Yeah, I think that can be tough. If you're working within your circle, then you stand a better chance of finding a person that's going to go through that journey with you and be supportive of that. If you're working beyond your circle, I think you have to offer up a vision for your company that someone else really connects to. And for me, it was the complexity and the ambition of the vision that Samuel latched onto. And he felt like it was an area that he could help in, given that had been his, background for many, many years. And he loved the ambition of what we were working on. And when we talked, we just really clicked. He's a very candid guy, straightforward. Um, but yeah, I think when you connect people to your vision, and you put your vision out there, the right people will come on board, and yeah, you can work magic.
Victor, can you talk a little bit about, like you said, having a great vision, being, optimistic, we're going to take over the world, and balance that with, we still have to be realistic. Even though we have this great vision, great team, great everything, odds are this is going to probably fail. How do you balance that?
Right. So I think the way I balance it is that I try to kind of break the problem up into smaller pieces. And so I know where the company is envisioned to go, and I dream big. So I believe that Xcellent Life can be a multi-billion-dollar company. I grew up in a multi-billion-dollar company cutting my teeth. So I have a reference point there, and I've closed large contracts. So understanding the market and the opportunity in the market, that was my vision. But the question is, how do you get there? And how do you kind of reconcile this big idea to, the reality? And I believe one of the ways you do that is you set milestones for yourself. And those milestones are smaller milestones. So you can gauge how effective you are at like getting to those milestones and have those mental checks and communicating that to your team and the people that are important, your VIPs, your stakeholders. And as people see that you're continuing to press forward and you're reaching those milestones, inherently what you start to do is bring on more support. Because initially people say, oh, well, it's just an idea. And then they see you moving forward. Okay, we actually did something. And then they say, well, it's just an idea. He did something, but surely he's not going to do this, or they're not going to do this. And then you do that and you present that to them. So over the course of time, what you find will happen is that you will gain more and more support because, I mean, just the tenacity that it takes to be an entrepreneur, that will really, pay itself in gold over the course of time. You just got to stay tenacious.
Victor, you already gave this out before, but can you give us your social media links for you and your company so people can reach out to you again?
Sure. Like reach out to me on Twitter. That is Victor Brown 7. Is my username on Twitter. Also, I'm really easy to find on Facebook. I probably spend more time on Twitter than Facebook, but LinkedIn as well. Victor Brown and Xcellent Life. Xcellent Life website is www.xcellentlife.com. That's Xcellent Life with an X. Xcellent life.com.
And for our listeners, we'll have the links to all the social media on our show notes. You can find our show notes at www.cavnessHRblog.com. Victor, we're coming to the end of our talk. Can you give our listeners any advice or wisdom on any subject you want to talk about?
Sure. I think the one advice I would give is that if you have an idea that you want to move forward in and you want to be an entrepreneur, I think it's very important that you are passionate about what that idea is, about what you're doing, because the journey of being an entrepreneur is very challenging and it won't be very rewarding in terms of financial rewards in the early stages. It can be longer term, but in the early stages, you need something that is more tied to passion that drives you forward past some of the challenges that you deal with. So do something that you're passionate about. And when you find that, I think it makes the road and journey much easier.
Victor, thank you for your time today. I really appreciate it.
Well, I appreciate being able to be on your show, Jason. It's been awesome. Anytime. I love this. Thank you.
And to our listeners, thank you for your time as well. And remember to be great every day.